Hi everybody, I'm here with David Ward at the Homeward Trust in Edmonton, Canada, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada, and he's the Director of Aboriginal Relations.
That's correct.
And I mean, I just love that, relations, because it has to be about relations. Um, Obviously, doing the homeless story in Canada, you have to include um, the population that's probably the most disproportionate.
That's correct.
And they've got some unique solutions here. So the first thing, well, one of the first things I asked David is, how can I, because even the 3 months I'm here, there's no way I can learn everything, and I really, honestly, not only respect the culture, but want to give the culture the voice that's needed. So I asked David, I said, how can I best support the Aboriginal First Nation culture?
Okay. Well, I think one of the things that we talked about initially was actually understanding some of the terminology.
Okay.
The First Nations population, we have about 653 First Nations in Canada. We have Métis nations that go from Alberta to Ontario. Alberta is very unique in terms of the Métis population. We're the only province in Canada that has a land-based Métis population. We have 8 Métis settlements, and we have a small Inuit population in Edmonton, but certainly still manifesting in the homeless population. But we have about 40% of that population out of the total homeless numbers, so about 40% are Aboriginal. But one of the things that we do in a really unique way here in Edmonton is that we have a unique governance structure. 4 out of our 9 board members are Aboriginal, and they're appointed through an Aboriginal nominating committee that we invite Treaty 6, Treaty 8, the Métis Nation of Alberta, the Canadian Native Friendship Centre, and Wichita Circle of Shared Responsibility, a community entity that hosts the Urban Aboriginal Strategy. So the 4 people actually are not appointed politicians. They're community leaders that actually want to put their energy into ending homelessness.
Wow.
We have another unique aspect, the Aboriginal Advisory Council. So any capital or proponent that comes forward and wants to build a project and wants to serve our population, they have access to the Aboriginal Advisory Council for advice on programs that work. Things like the Circle of Courage program that Dr. Martin Brokenleg has established in BC and is making its way sort of across the country. Considering that balance that we try to achieve as Indigenous people to try and actually live the good life.
Yeah. Explain that, would you?
Well, there's several different teachings, and as you go across the country, you'll hear about the Cree and the Blackfoot versions of the medicine wheel. In some ways, some people talk about them as circles or cycles, and we just believe that there's a beginning and a start to things, and they all cycle out. And that may be the example we were talking about this morning in community initiatives was about a cycle of somebody being chronically homeless. They didn't start there. They started through generations of Indigenous people that may have been affected by residential school. They may have been affected by the 60s scoop, where they went out and basically took Aboriginal people from their communities, and they were in care. They're rewards of the government.
Right.
And particularly in our province, we have right now about 68% of Aboriginal people, our Aboriginal youth, in the child welfare system are Aboriginal.
Right.
Obviously an overrepresentation in the jail system as well. And I think one of the unique things that we need to look at in Canada, and I think several communities, particularly urban settings, are taking the time and building the relationships to do this.
Right.
I mean, in Edmonton here we have something called the Edmonton Urban Aboriginal Accord, and a declaration that our city has signed with our community to
Right.
commit to that relationship building process.
Right.
And we're actually, I think part of my position here in an organization like this, having a director of Aboriginal relations for an organization that manages the resources to the degree we do, we would have never seen this 10 years ago. And to actually be that and be responsible for that role in our community is not just about Edmonton. It's about our country and about the changing factors that are coming into play.
In the States, I've traveled maybe 100 cities, and I'll occasionally meet a homeless person that says, I want to be homeless. And what they're really saying is, I gave up. The system's broken, I've gave up. It's called learned helplessness. Well, here I've talked to a couple of Aboriginal people on the streets, and they said, I like being outdoors. And, there's a big cultural difference. And these people, I do believe them. The difference is, though, that if they were offered a better life.
Right.
And then you brought it into the mind, the spiritual, and everything else,
Right.
which you have to incorporate into all our programs. Can you talk about that? Because even though that person is out by the river, in an urban community, this is not camping. That's not how they should live. That's not how anybody should live.
That's right. I mean, the heat and the bugs alone are ridiculous for just us playing baseball. But what I was describing to you was about trying to live a balanced life. You know, we've had the good fortune to build a relationship with a college called Blue Quills University College here in Alberta. And they've done a research project on us, the first of its kind that I'm aware of, is Indigenous people's participation in the Housing First program. They've interviewed 25 people, Aboriginal people, and basically shared their stories and applied research to it. And what they've come up with is really people are looking to validate an identity that they've had generations of disconnection from.
Right.
And our elders teach us about being in a mental, physical, emotional, and spiritual balance with ourselves. And when you achieve that balance, the idea is that you actually achieve the good life. And if I am an example of that balance and I share that balance with you, then that spreads into our community. And the more and more examples that we can create in our community, in our country, I think the more and more healthy we can get. And that perception of living on the land that that Indigenous person has is disconnected from the mental and spiritual, and might be connected to the physical part and the emotional part. And I think as that awareness grows, that perception will be added to in a healthier way. And you know, I think part of the learning is taking this training, this research, and attaching it to our frontline workers and making sure that when they're building that relationship, they can actually look at through the lens of that individual and their cultural background. So this might be starting as an Aboriginal thing, but we have immigrant and refugee community members that are overrepresented. The Somalian community has a high population. So we need to be able to adapt these learnings to other cultural scopes of reference so that those kinds of advantages can be brought to our whole world.
Poor Alex's arm's about ready to fall off. I should have given him a monopod because I go that all the time. So I'll end by saying this. I'm very encouraged because one is just I like solutions and I love embracing different cultures. But one of the things is, as David was talking this morning, is not only are they listening to the Aboriginal community, they're empowering them to have the voice, which is exactly what in line with what I'm doing with the We Are Visible. And it is. We need to listen to the people we are serving. All of them, not just one demographic, but all of them. And then we need to give them a voice so everybody hears them, because that's the only way we're going to affect change. So thank you very much.
Thank you for visiting our community, and good luck on your trip.
Thank you.